My name's David Monroe. I'm 19, a freshman at a small college in Indiana, and all I wanted was to be part of Sigma Theta, my dad's old fraternity. He always told me how joining Sigma Theta was one of the best parts of his life, so I felt like I was following in his footsteps. But that week, I found out how far some people were willing to go in the name of tradition, and it's something I'll never be able to forget. It was initiation week, and they called it Hell Week for a reason. Every night, the seniors would line us up, throw tasks our way, push us to our limits. But I didn't complain. I wanted this too much. Everything was going fine, just the usual humiliating stuff you'd expect during frat pledging, until the last night. That's when they took us out to the bridge. The old bridge sat at the edge of town, far from the streetlights, practically rotting away in the middle of nowhere. Everyone in town knew it was dangerous, with broken railings and crumbling support beams, but that didn't stop Sigma Theta. It was part of their final test. I should have known something was wrong when they started handing out blindfolds, but the others didn't say anything, so I didn't either. They put the blindfold over my eyes, tightened it, and spun me around a few times to disorient me. Then they led me to the edge of the bridge and told me to walk, to stay right on the narrow side ledge. It was barely a foot wide, and even though I couldn't see, I could feel how close I was to the drop. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd be sick. But I kept moving, one shaky step at a time. I didn't want them to think I was weak. As I walked, the guys were laughing, egging me on, making jokes like it was all some big game. "Don't fall, David," one of them called out, and the others just laughed louder. I tried to focus, tried to ignore them, but the ledge was slick, and every step felt like I was walking on ice. Then, out of nowhere, my foot slipped. My body lurched, and my hands shot out, grasping for something, anything. I managed to grab onto the rusty old railing, but I was dangling over the edge, feet flailing against the cold night air. I screamed, yelled for them to pull me up, but they just kept laughing, thinking I was putting on an act. I kept shouting, feeling my fingers start to slip, until finally someone yelled, "All right, stop messing around, David." But by then, my fingers were already giving out. In one desperate move, I swung my body back and threw myself onto the ledge, gasping for air. I tore off the blindfold and looked around, shaking. But before I could catch my breath, they were already shoving the next guy forward, laughing as they pushed him to the edge. He didn't even have time to steady himself before they told him to start walking. I don't know if it was my own fear or the look in his eyes, but I wanted to stop them, to say it was enough. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen, as he took his first step onto the ledge, then another. And then, like me, he slipped. Only he didn't grab the railing in time. He let out this blood-curdling scream as he went over, and that's when everyone froze. I'll never forget the silence that followed, the way everyone just stared over the edge, as if waiting for something, anything. But there was nothing, just darkness. I left Sigma Theta that night. I couldn't get his scream out of my head, and I still hear it sometimes, echoing whenever I close my eyes. It was supposed to be just a stupid initiation, a test of courage. But it was more than that. It was a nightmare I'll never escape. My name is Owen Parker. I'm 20 years old, and I used to be a student at a small college in Illinois. I thought joining Alpha Chi would be my ticket to fitting in, making friends, and building memories I'd have for the rest of my life. But what happened that night in the basement of the frat house changed everything. It's something I'll never forget, no matter how hard I try. It was a warm fall evening, and the guys from Alpha Chi were throwing one of their biggest parties of the semester. The house was packed with people, music blasting, drinks everywhere. It was initiation week, and they wanted us pledges to prove our survival skills. They called it a bonding experience, something that would test our loyalty. I wanted so badly to impress them, to prove I could be one of them. That's how I ended up volunteering to take the challenge. They took me down to the basement, where there was this old, rusty walk-in cooler. I'd never seen anything like it. It was huge, with metal walls and a thick door that could only be opened from the outside. They gave me a thin, ratty blanket and shoved me inside, laughing as they told me to hang tight until morning. "You'll be fine," they said. "It's just one night." At first, I thought it would be easy. The door closed with a heavy thud, and I was plunged into darkness, surrounded by the stale smell of old metal. I tried to make myself comfortable, but the cold hit me almost immediately. It seeped in through the walls, creeping into my bones, and no matter how tightly I wrapped myself in that thin blanket, I couldn't shake the chill. Hours passed, and the cold just got worse. I started shivering uncontrollably, teeth chattering so hard it hurt. I yelled, banged on the door, hoping someone would hear me over the noise upstairs. But the party raged on, and I realized they'd probably forgotten about me. My fingers and toes were numb, and my breath came out in puffs of fog. I tried to stay awake, terrified of what might happen if I let myself drift off in that freezing darkness. I don't know how long I was in there. Every minute felt like an eternity. At some point, I lost track of time, slipping in and out of consciousness. I had this horrible feeling that this was it, that no one was coming back for me. I started to feel numb everywhere, and that terrified me even more. The next thing I remember is light flooding in as the door finally opened. One of the guys looked down at me, his face going pale as he saw me curled up, barely conscious. I couldn't even move. They carried me out, whispering and panicking, trying to figure out how they'd forgotten me. I left college soon after. I didn't see any of them again, and I didn't want to. Some of them reached out, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. They could forget about me, just like they forgot that night. But for me, I can still feel the chill in my bones, a reminder of how close I came to being just another forgotten brother. My name's Luke Harrison. I'm 21, a junior at a small college in Ohio. Last fall, I pledged for Sigma Delta, a fraternity known for its intense initiation rituals. The challenge I got seemed simple enough. I just had to navigate the old steam tunnels under campus, a cramped, decaying maze that no one used anymore. People claimed the tunnels were haunted, with missing pledges from previous years. I laughed it off, assuming it was just to scare us. I wasn't about to back out. Armed with a small flashlight, I ducked inside. The air was hot, stale, and hard to breathe, pressing in as I moved deeper. My flashlight flickered, casting strange shadows along the damp walls, making me feel like they were closing in. I kept telling myself this was just a test of courage. Halfway through, I heard a faint sound behind me. A dragging shuffle. I stopped, holding my breath. "Hello," I called, thinking maybe another pledge was sent to freak me out. Nothing. I kept walking, but the footsteps continued, drawing closer. I quickened my pace, feeling the panic setting in. Suddenly, I reached a dead end. My flashlight illuminated a wall of crumbling bricks and tangled pipes blocking my path. Panic surge. I turned to go back, but the tunnel felt even narrower, every breath harder to catch. In my rush, I stumbled, my flashlight rolling a few feet ahead. As I scrambled to grab it, my hand brushed against something soft on the ground. It was a dusty, worn pledge jacket, lying right there in the mud. My heart raced. That jacket looked ancient, like it had been left there ages ago. There'd been no mention of anyone else going in before me, and I knew the pledges in my class didn't own anything like that. At that point, I didn't care if I looked scared. I just needed to get out. The footsteps grew louder behind me, and I swore I felt something brush my shoulder. I bolted, sprinting down the narrow tunnel, barely noticing the damp walls or the stifling air. When I finally burst out of the entrance, gasping for air, the seniors just laughed. They thought I'd psyched myself out, but I knew what I'd heard, what I'd seen. Later, I asked around about that pledge jacket. Some of the older members grew quiet, exchanging uneasy glances. I heard whispers about pledges who'd gone missing over the years, stories nobody really took seriously. Until now, I couldn't shake the feeling that one of them never left those tunnels, and that maybe, just maybe, he was still down there, waiting for the next pledge to find him. It was supposed to be a test of loyalty, a stupid tradition, to see who could make it through. But that night, something else was in those tunnels with me, and I don't think I'll ever forget the sound of those footsteps, haunting me even now.